Growing corals in a controlled environment, not in a captive environment necessarily, but a controlled environment, and then taking those corals and planting them out on reefs to sort of help repopulate. They're having a lot of success with elkhorn and staghorn corals. Those grow fairly fast as corals go, but the big problem is corals are basically
in the studio by my friend Courtney. And if you have anything that you are wanting to share along with us, I'm going to be asking for observations. If you have questions, if you are wondering about things, you are more than welcome to go ahead and send us a text. And I'll go ahead and put our text line down here in just a second, too. Or if you are watching after the fact, you can use our email as well. So, a couple of options for you to get in touch. Thank you, Courtney, for throwing that on. So if you have any things you want to let us know live, you can go ahead and let us know at 562-286-1838. And then if you are watching after the fact, feel free to get in contact with us by emailing us at live, that is LIVE, at lbaop.org. Okay, so today we do have a very fun topic that we are going to get started with. But before we do that, I always kind of like to practice making some observations. Now, what do you think of when you hear the word observation? You may recognize the first part of that word, observe, and that means to watch or to look at things. And observations are just a very fancy word for talking about things that we can see with our eyeballs. Now, when you think of things that scientists do, sometimes you may think of them making experiments, maybe doing research, maybe looking at things in a microscope or in a lab. But also, a big thing that starts all of that is when scientists are making observations. So, I want you all to practice using your scientist brains and make some observations about what you see going on here behind me. Now, what we are looking at here is a very cool exhibit, actually, one of our largest here at the aquarium, and it is powered through the live cam on the website that you see right down here, explore.org. So you can visit that if you ever want to watch some of our live cams on your own, or you can just go to our website, Aquarium of the Pacific, and you'll be able to find them through there as well. So I'm going to step off screen, and I want you to take a couple of moments to make some observations about some of the things you see going on here in this exhibit. Now, if you have people around you, more than welcome to let them know what your observations are. If you want to text us, you can go ahead and text us at 562-286-1838. Or you can just share your observations in your own brain. But go ahead, think about some things that you notice. I know something that I notice in here that truthfully we don't see that often are all of those bubbles in there. Now, it looks like all of those bubbles are also coming from somewhere. Oh, it looks like we have some people swimming around in there. Oh, I see a lot of different gear and equipment all over them. So I don't think they're just swimmers. I think those are some scuba divers. So that's something that we have really cool going on here in this exhibit. And actually, we were just now switched over to a highlight reel, but that's okay because we can see a bunch of our other animals moving around too. So like I said, not every day that we see some of our divers in there, but now we get a good chance to look at some of those other animals. Now I notice a lot of different shapes, a lot of different sizes, a lot of different ways that some of these animals are moving around. Now with these animals, we see all sorts of different shapes, all sorts of different sizes, because the area or the home that they live in is a type of coral reef environment. Now, those areas are really cool and have a lot of whole types of animals that live near them. So that means you get all sorts of different colors, all sorts of different sizes, and a whole bunch of kinds of species that like to live in or around coral reefs. So that would explain maybe the animals that swim kind of more like this, maybe the animals that swim more like this, ones that have big fins, small fins, long kind of mouths or short mouths. All sorts of different type of animals like to live here in this coral reef environment. Now we see a lot of different types of fish here in this environment. But something else that we are also seeing right now, which is cool, is we see a couple of different types of rays hanging out in this environment. Did you know that I'm going to be talking all about rays and how they're very special and unique and also different from some other types of animals. Now, first things first, Courtney, could you be able to get me a picture of just one of our fish that we have on there? I want to go ahead and start with a fish so that we can do some maybe, ooh, comparing and contrasting. Okay, so first things first, what I always like to do is let's kind of break it down and let's make some observations. Let's just start that things with things that we see, things that we notice, and then maybe things that you wonder too. Okay. So something that I notice kind of right away are all the colors on this fish. I see a lot of kind of like blues over here, kind of like some pink dots, almost like some orangey kind of as well. Now, what about the shape of this fish? What kind of shapes do you see when you're looking at it? If I look maybe right over here at the eyeball, it's more of a circle. That's a kind of similar shape to the eyeballs that we have. But when you're looking at like the whole body of the fish, what type of shape do you kind of see? Is it like circular? Is it triangular? Is it more like an oval? I feel like to me it's a little more like an oval, and then its tail sticks out a little bit more on the back end too. So fish can have a couple different types of body shapes. Now, rays, they also have a couple different types of body shapes, but they also have things that are different inside of their bodies than that fish have inside of their bodies as well. So I want you to think about yourselves as humans, as animals for a quick second. What are some things that you use to move around, or what are some things in your body that are really special that help you survive and do things all the time? When you think about those things, those are called adaptations, and that's basically anything that's really fancy on an animal that helps them survive. So think about some things that help you out as a human. What's inside your body? I know that if I feel like my hand, oh, thank you, Courtney, for getting adaptation. So if I feel like my hand or feel like my arm or something, I feel a bone inside of them. And I know my bones connect to all sorts of other things and help me moving around. I know I also have muscles that help me move around and give me lots of strength too. Other adaptations that humans have are our fingers, our thumbs, our ears on the outside. We have all sorts of awesome adaptations. Now, one of the big things inside of our bodies that help us out are our skeletons. Our really nice, hard, bony structures inside of us help us out. And that is the same for our fish here as well. Now, let me go ahead and step off screen for just a second so I can grab a fishy skeleton to show you. Now, fish have skeletons as well. You can kind of see it right here. And this is made out of the same kind of bone that we have in our bodies. So that same kind of hard bone is what these animals have in their bodies too. You can kind of see it right there. They have kind of ribs like we do. They have definitely those tail bones as well. Now, what makes fish different from our friends, the rays, are what make up their bodies and their kind of skeletons. Rays and also sharks, because those animals are kind of closely related, their bodies are made entirely out of the really flexible stuff we have in our ears and in our noses. Do you know what that stuff is called? Totally okay if you don't, if you haven't gotten to that point in school. But the material in our ears and in our noses is different than the stuff that we have in the rest of our body. In the rest of our body, we have really hard and dense bone. And in our ears and in our nose, we have much lighter cartilage. Now, that's what sharks and rays have in their entire body. So sometimes when people are talking about animals, like especially marine animals, although sharks and rays are a type of fish, we usually talk about them a little separately than bony fish. We have cartilaginous fish, the cartilage ones, and then we have sharks and rays. Oh, not shark. Sorry. Sharks and rays, the cartilaginous ones, and then bony fish. So we kind of separate them when we are talking about them. And look, it looks like we have one of our really cute little rays right there as well. So I'm going to go over to my whiteboard for just a second, just because I want to write something down that we will all be able to remember. And that is, a kind of point that I think is a little important. So when we are talking about fish, bony fish, They have hard, dense bones in their body. And then when it comes to rays, let me draw its little mouth. Rays, let me do sharks too. They have cartilage. And that is a little lighter. So that's why we talk about these animals a little differently, just because they have some different parts to them. So the main things we kind of want to remember just are that cartilage is a little lighter, and then that's what rays and sharks have. And then they have bony fish who have hard, dense bone in their bodies instead. And then we also had a question from a viewer, which is awesome. Please send all those questions in if you have them. Do stingrays lay eggs? Now, I will get back to that only because I don't want to get off topic, but I promise you I will get back to that one as well because that is an important thing to talk about with our rays. Now, Courtney, can you do me a favor? Can you go back to our picture of our cow nose ray, please? And I want you all to make some observations about the kind of body shape that you see. Right now we have a little bit of a like two-dimensional kind of like view of the ray, so it's a little flatter. But I want you to make some observations about some of the things that you see right here as well. So go ahead, make some observations about the ray, and then I am going to grab my water very quickly because I unlike rays do not live in the water, so sometimes I get parched. But go ahead and make some observations about what you see. All right, what are some things that you notice when looking at this ray? Do its fins look a little different compared to maybe that other fish we were looking at? Are you noticing its kind of cute little smile right here? Or even those little lines that you see right there on it? So rays can have totally different types of body shapes. The one that we are looking at right here is common to some types of rays, and it's this more triangular looking kind of fin shape. So think about any other animals you know that may have more triangular kind of fins like this, or maybe animals that may have wings in the water as well. If you think about animals like birds, you may think of them kind of similarly to our rays. So when birds are moving around through the water, they tend to be when birds are flying through the air, they tend to kind of flap their wings up and down. And when these types of rays will be moving a little bit more similarly to birds. Now later we'll have a chance to look at other types of rays and see their body shape, and I'll explain how they move around too. Now, something that's really special about rays is that they are relatively flat. And so I say relatively because every now and then they can have some kind of like bulge in the middle, but they're usually pretty flat like this. Depending on like the size of the ray, they can be like have a little bit more girth in the middle, but they could tend to be kind of flat. And then like I said, they may have these more triangular shaped kind of fins here on the side. Now, because these rays are really flat, where do you think a good place for them to have their mouth is? Do you think it would be like on the top of their head? Underneath? This picture is kind of giving it away for us right here too, but they have their rays on their mouths on the underside of their body. Now, why do we think that helps them out? Well, the thing that it helps them with is rays like to spend a lot of time on the bottom of the ocean floor, so they can just kind of slide and slip their way around the ocean floor and then slurp up any food that they may want to eat too. So having their mouth on the underside of their body is perfect because they can just slurp anything up that they may be kind of living or laying near as well. Now, the reason why I said they kind of slip or slide around the bottom of the ocean floor is because rays live on the bottom of the ocean floor, typically, they can kind of scratch themselves up on maybe the rocks, maybe the sand, maybe anything that could be sharp down there like shells or other things. So rays have a very nice protective mucousy coating on their skin. So it makes sure they don't scratch themselves. It also helps protect them against any hitchhikers like lice, barnacles, things like that. And believe it or not, it also acts as a sunscreen. So just like how we as humans and other types of animals can get more or less tan depending on if we're in the sun, rays and sharks are the same way. Some rays live in really shallow areas where the sun is super, super bright. So having that nice kind of mucousy sunscreen helps protect them a little bit as well. So that's why rays have that awesome body shape to them, that much kind of flatter body shape that you see. Now, those lines that you see on the ray are also very helpful as well. Those lines are the gills. So that is the way that our ray can help itself breathe. Now, there's also another little spot right there that's called the spiracle, and that acts just like our nostrils do. They help bring in water and pump them over the ray's gills, and so that's another feature that helps it breathe. So both the gills and the spiracle that they have right over there. Now, when it comes to these specific types of rays, they live in more tropical places, so areas a little closer to the equator. Now, cow-nose rays in particular can get about like 1 to 2 feet across. They're not like super giant, maybe like 3 feet in diameter. And they can weigh up to about 50 pounds, maybe a little more, maybe a little less. And that's just one type of ray that we have here at the aquarium. But unfortunately, it's not local to our Southern California coast right here. Okay, so now let me get back to some of those questions as well. So what's really interesting about rays is that they have relatives, the sharks, and sharks give live birth, sharks lay eggs. Sharks also have a mixture of the two, both live birth and laying eggs, excuse me. But when it comes to our ray friends, these animals reproduce by giving live birth. Now, when you see videos or if you see a ray giving birth, sometimes what I have seen in the videos is especially for these ones that have more pointed wings, when they kind of come out, when they are, I don't want to say hatched, but when they are born, they are kind of rolled up and have their wings really nice and tucked in. They almost look like they are wrapped up, kind of like little burritos or anything that's kind of wrapped up nice and tightly. So it looks very cool and kind of funny when they are being born. Now, the reason they're able to do that is because they have that much flexible cartilage. If they had that kind of harder, stiffer bone, like how fish do, I don't know if they could wrap themselves up in an almost little stingray burrito like that as well. And then thank you, Julian, Carter, and Tyler for asking us that question as well. That's a really cool one, and animals reproduce in all sorts of different ways. So if it's live birth or egg laying, it's always cool to research some of those. Now, we also have another one from our question askers, Julian, Carter, and Tyler, too. Do rays have teeth, or do they have a beak? Let's look at this right here. Now, this is one of our eagle rays. Not the largest, but one of the largest. One of the largest rays that we do have here at the aquarium. Now, with these rays, they can get about like 9 feet across. Usually the average is about 6 feet, and they can also get up to 444 pounds. So I apologize for friends who use a different sort of measuring or reference system, but I cannot convert that fast, and I will be providing the things that I have. So again, up to 9 feet. Usually the average is about like 6 feet across, and then about 440 pounds. So that's a lot. Now, when you are looking at the mouth of this animal, what does it kind of look like? I would say I can see why you would maybe say beaked, because it has that like really pointy part right here. But the reason why it has the kind of pointy part and also kind of helps its name, it's an eagle ray. So it gets that pointy part because it can also kind of help it shovel through anything it may want to. But that's also what we named the animal after, the eagle ray, because it kind of has that long, almost bird-like beak like an eagle. Now, with rays, they are usually eating things that are maybe softer, maybe that have a shell on them. Shells are typically kind of hard and tough to eat. So what rays are equipped with in order to eat and crush those shells are usually very flat teeth, kind of like a nutcracker. Now, sharp or really flat teeth. Now, sharp teeth are really good for like catching fast and slippery stuff or tearing through things. Maybe if you are getting really fast, slippery fish, maybe sea lions. But rays are going after things that are usually kind of inactive. They don't move too much. And usually those things that don't move too much need to protect themselves from being easy food. So they usually have shells to kind of help deter or scare away predators. Now, luckily for rays, they have those really flat teeth that are allowing them to break into and kind of crush open those shells. Now, if we go and take a look at my document camera, I can go ahead and show you the different types of a couple of examples of some teeth as well. So we have our ray teeth right here. And some things that people make observations about when they are looking at the teeth are that they almost kind of look like a snake pattern. And I definitely agree. Those little almost plates or all the kind of little patterns you see right there really do kind of look like snake teeth. Now, these really flat dental plates allow rays to crush things like these shells. They can also get into, now this one's a giant example, but they also like to eat these types of animals called abalone, which is a really big snail. Now, probably a larger ray would have to eat this one because of how big it is. But an example of types of food that they like to eat and the adaptations those prey items may have. Now, I do also have a beak for us to take a look at because we are talking about them anyway. And this is the beak or the replica of one that might belong to a octopus or a squid. So yes, octopus and squid will have beaks similar to birds. And that's good because it also allows them to kind of break into things, or maybe even get a good grip with the pointy parts right there. So rays will typically have the kind of flatter teeth, maybe a little bit of raised bumps to them, but nothing that's really serrated and kind of pointed like shark teeth. They usually have these much flatter ones. So I hope that helps answer your question about the ray teeth. And again, thank you, Julie and Carter and Tyler, for asking that. Those are really good questions, and good kind of ways to keep us going as well. Okay, so now that we've talked about some rays that can be found in more tropical Pacific places, ones that you may have to, I don't know, like get on a plane or swim very, very far to see, I would like to talk about a couple of local species that we have here in California. Now, the first one, oh yes, thank you, Courtney, that is perfect. Here we have a type of ray called a bat ray. What are some things that you notice when looking at this ray? You may not be able to tell too much in this picture, but it does have the same kind of body shape as the eagle ray and the cownose ray. It has those more triangular shaped fins. It'll flap them up and down when it's moving around. Something else that's really cool about this ray is that it's black on top and then white on the underside. Why do we think it has that? What do you think that could help it with? Or do you know any other animals that also have coloration like that? If you answered yes, you are probably thinking about animals maybe like our sharks that have that dark on top, light underneath. Orcas are also like that. Penguins are also like that too. And that is a special type of camouflage called counter shading. So instead of changing color to whatever you are around, you are able to blend into the open water column. So let's say you are a counter shaded animal and there is a predator looking at you from up top. When the predator is looking at you from up top, it's going to see the dark top side of your body, just like that. And then the dark top side of your body will blend in with the darker water underneath it. Because the further you go down in the ocean, the darker the water gets. Now, the closer to the surface you get, the lighter the water is. So if a predator is looking at you from underneath and they look up, they will see that white underbelly blending in with the lighter water above, closer to the surface. Now, thank you, Courtney, for pulling that one up too. So that counter shading, lots of animals have it. And again, it's a way to camouflage in the open ocean as opposed to changing color to things that are around in your habitat. Now, with bat rays, they can be found in kelp forests here in California, usually not like the really shallow areas. Usually they need a little bit of water because they can get up to 5 feet across and they can weigh up to 210 pounds. So they can get a decent size. So they usually try to give themselves a good amount of water to hang out in. Now, these animals are very cool, and if anybody's been to Catalina or in other places, you might have seen these animals snorkeling. But there is one more ray that oftentimes we run into the most on accident, and it's one that is a very, very, very good player when playing hide and seek. And those are the round rays. Now, the last animal I want to talk about will be our round ray because they're kind of the ones that we should probably be, well, not the most aware of, but they're the ones who we can run into the most at our Southern California beaches. Now, round rays are called round rays because, as you can see, they are a little more round. When they swim through the water, they don't really flap their wings up and down because they don't have wings to flap up and down. They ripple the sides of their little bodies. Those are also still called fins. And the word for that is called undulating. And it literally means just to move in a kind of wave-like manner. So they ripple or kind of wave those side fins that they have. Now, when you are looking at this ray, did you first think like, wait, Courtney really pulled a picture up? I don't see anything. It's kind of hiding very well. And if you thought that, you are thinking the next point that I'm trying to get to about how these rays are incredibly good hiders. They're very well built and adapted for hiding in these sandy environments. So these rays have a nice kind of beige color to them, and that's the exact same color as the sand around them. Sometimes what these round rays will do is they will hang out in shallowy areas, like right where the waves are breaking, and they'll just kind of bury themselves underneath the sand using those little ripples on the sides of their body to get sand on top of them. Now, when they're hiding underneath the sand, they are even tougher to see. Sometimes we can't even see them, only they can see by sticking their little eyeballs up out of the sand and looking around. Now, the reason why I wanted to talk about these animals is because they like hiding in the sand. And guess where we often step when we are hanging out at our local beaches? In the sand, sometimes right on them. And these animals don't like it. And that's typically when we meet them as they are usually known as stingrays. These animals do have the ability to sting us. However, with stingrays, they use their stinger very similarly to how a bee does. And if anybody is kind of familiar with sports, they will only ever use it out of defense when their life is in danger. They will never use it out of offense when they are trying to get food or just for fun. So rays only sting us if they are threatened, and typically it's when we accidentally step on them. So if you are entering the local beaches this summer or whenever, or any beaches for that matter, a really good kind of rule of thumb to remember is the stingray shuffle, or to kind of shuffle and kick around your feet and the sand as you're moving around, especially entering and exiting the beaches, so that way any rays that are hanging out right under the sand can know and they can move out of your way. Because just as much as we don't want to step on them and get stung, they also don't want to get stepped on either. So the stingray shuffle is a good thing to kind of remember, and also it's something that you can tell your friends and family about. Now, in the chance that you do accidentally step on one of these rays, no worries. If you do happen to get stung, you'll be okay. It may hurt a little bit, but you'll be okay. And the things that you can do afterwards are to find your local your local lifeguards, because what they'll do is they will be able to make sure you're okay and also give you some hot water to put your foot in or whatever it is in. So again, those are just ways that we can make sure we don't accidentally step on these animals and make sure that we keep our interactions with them really safe, and also make sure we know, we aren't encroaching or stepping into their territory too much. But otherwise, these animals are really cool, and they only ever will use that if they are in danger. So whether you have the chance to snorkel with these animals, if you see them as you're kayaking, paddle boarding, if you come visit us here at the aquarium and get a chance to touch some of them, they are very cool and they have all sorts of special features and adaptations that make them really well built for all the different types of habitats that they live in. So, with that being said, if anybody does have any more questions, you are more than welcome to text us or you can email us again at live@lbaop.org. Now, I'll admit, rays, similar to sharks, are sometimes animals that can be a little scary if we don't know too much about them, but I encourage you to learn about information in settings like this or do your own research to see if there's things that you find interesting and kind of cute about these animals, because that really helps with it too. When we learn a little bit more about them, we know that they don't really want to hurt us. They're also just trying to live their best lives out in the ocean as well. So again, thank you to everybody that was streaming along with us. Thank you to friends that were asking questions. Again, anything else you want to let us know, you have our email down there, live@lbaop.org. Thank you to my friend Courtney for helping us switch everything along. And once again, everybody, thank you for joining with us. And if you have anything else you want to ask, let us know. If not, go ahead, keep exploring. And thanks for tuning along, and we'll see you next time. Bye!